Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. One of the weather warnings is we actually have quite a large rain warning issued for tomorrow, as we are seeing some quite extensive areas of heavy rain and maybe even some thunderstorms through tomorrow, especially for parts of Wales, the West Midlands up towards northern England. So we'll have a look at that in detail, and of course look at the UKV, look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. Also, it is warming up, as we have highlighted in the last few videos. We're going to be seeing much warmer upper air temperatures waft up from the south, and we'll be able to see the temperatures by the end of the week will be widely in the mid-20s, maybe even towards the high 20s. Unfortunately, for those wanting a heat wave or something a lot hotter, temperatures into the 30s, that now is looking quite unlikely, with the majority of models and ensembles now getting the upper air temperatures around that 10 to 15 degree mark, not the possible 15 to 20 degree mark that we were seeing over the last few days. So it has corrected slightly lower. Again, it doesn't mean it's going to be cold, it's still going to be well above average, it's still going to be very warm, it's just not going to be heat wave levels or anything ridiculously hot. Also, it does look likely low pressure could be mixing in a little bit more than we anticipated a couple of days ago, and that will mean that there is the risk, especially from the weekend into next working week, of more showers and more thunderstorms. So some of you may enjoy that, others, unfortunately, it could spoil that warmer conditions a little bit. But by the end of this working week, from the latest UKV, it is looking pretty decent. So we'll explore all of that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So do start on the live radar. You can see there is quite an array of showers in the north. At the moment, we've got southwesterly winds, low pressure out to our west, high pressure building into our east. But that high pressure is not really going to take control for another couple of days, and it's going to mean we're going to see a lot of rainfall coming in from the southwest. You can see at the moment northern England into Scotland being the biggest areas impacted, and a few showers across Northern Ireland as well. Some of these showers are quite heavy, a few thundery showers possible towards Edinburgh here, towards southeast Scotland, as well as seeing some bright colours appearing in the radar here, but the majority are moderate in intensity. Temperatures today aren't going to be anything amazing. The humid air we have had over the last few days has now got swept away for the most part, but still could just about reach the low 20s, maybe 22 or 23 in the east. Elsewhere, back towards the high teens or touching 20 degrees. But it's going to be slowly ramping up once again for all areas in sort of from about Tuesday, Wednesday onwards. And by the, as I said, the end of the week, it's going to be widely quite dry and pretty warm as well for most regions. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, we do have this widespread yellow rain warning issued for parts of Wales into the West Midlands, North West England, and Northern England in general. Now, it is issued from midnight until 9 p.m. Rain, heavy and persistent at times, bringing the risk of disruption to transport and infrastructure. So here, rain expected to develop across southwest England and South Wales on Sunday evening, spreading northeast to affect many parts of England and Wales through Monday before easing and clearing into the North Sea on Monday night. Within this large band, a corridor of heavy, persistent, and perhaps thundery rainfall is expected to develop, so there's a risk of embedded thunderstorms within this. There is some uncertainty in the track of this heavier rain, as we'll see in a minute on the UKV. It is very intense, but it is intense only in certain locations. Some areas seeing very minimal rainfall, but 20 to 40 millimetres is expected to fall in many areas within the warning area, 60 to 80 millimetres in a few places, much of which could fall in as little as 3 to 6 hours. At this stage, this very heavy rain appears more likely to fall over northwest Wales and northwest England in this corridor here towards the centre of the warning. Look at the impact matrix. It's high impact, but very low likelihood, and that is because we are very uncertain about exactly where the heaviest rainfall will occur. From the looks of the latest runs, if we did have very good confidence, we could even see an amber warning issued, but that's very unlikely with the low confidence we have at the moment. So do go over to the UKV, we'll be able to see all this heavy rain through tomorrow. You can see all the showers around at the moment. Again, heavy in places, but mostly moderate in intensity. Through the evening tonight, you can start to see heavy rain appearing in the west. Initially, light to moderate in intensity, but those brighter colours out in the Irish Sea are spreading in. And by tomorrow, early hours of the morning, look at that, very intense rainfall in patches. Initially quite persistent, but not too heavy. Then we see heavier pulses that are more scattered through the early morning into the early afternoon as well. You can see that on this little spiral of rainfall. Now the UKV is taking some of this very heavy rain actually slightly offshore. That would be good signs, and that would push those heaviest rainfall totals not on land. But if this did shift slightly further southwards, it could be really quite intense in places. Even areas to the south and east of the morning could see some quite heavy rainfall with some brighter colours appearing here as well. Now through the afternoon we could see some more heavy showers, especially in the southeast. Some of these could be quite thundery, but for most in the north, actually through the rest of the warning, it doesn't actually look too bad. So I'm a bit surprised the Met Office warning is issued all the way into the evening, when it looks like most of the heavy rain will subside around the early afternoon. But of course there is the risk that we see some of these showers further northwards as well. So yes, tomorrow it's going to be pretty miserable, really quite heavy rain in places. Uncertainty exactly where the heaviest rain will be and any risk of thunderstorms within that heavy rain. But at the moment the timeline is definitely through the morning. By the afternoon there will be showers in the southeast, but most of the persistent torrential rainfall should have cleared. As we spread through Monday into Tuesday, we see some more showers around, but it is starting to turn drier. And this is because high pressure is building in. Wednesday, very similar. A couple odd showers around, but mostly dry. Thursday, mostly dry as well. And into Friday, mostly dry, but few pesky showers starting to break out in the west. That is the risk if the low pressure out in the Atlantic is going to move in and going to give rain and thunderstorms during the weekend and perhaps into early parts of next working week. Now the upper air temperatures are rising by Friday. Look at that, low to maybe mid-teens in the south. And if we have a look at the 2 meter temperatures now, you'll be able to see they are rising quite significantly through the rest of this week. So do have a look at the latest. You can see this afternoon temperatures peaking maybe 20 to 22 degrees, maybe or 23, but elsewhere further westwards, high teens. Tomorrow it's going to be very much dependent on where we see the heavy rain in the southeast, with the showers in the afternoon, high teens at best. Across parts of the Midlands, actually, where we did see some very heavy rain in the morning, could get to 23 or 24 in some of the sunshine. Again, I wouldn't take these temperatures as gospel, as they are likely to shift depending on the exact positioning of rainfall and thunderstorms and cloud. Into Tuesday, temperatures rising slightly higher, more widely, 21 to maybe 24. Wednesday, maybe touching 25 or 26. And by Thursday, finally last afternoon, we can look at on this run, widely more towards that 25 or 26 degree mark in the south, probably peaking at 27 or 28 in an odd spot. And yeah, it started to turn a lot warmer and a lot more widespread, even to the north of Scotland. 21 or 22 doesn't sound exceptional, but it is pretty warm. That is well above average for the time of year for the second half of August for northern Scotland, and much of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland seeing low 20s as well, maybe even touching mid-20s. So widely much warmer, but the risk is that rainfall in the southwest may try to move in. You can see the mean sea level pressure, high pressure to our east, low pressure out to our west, a strong southeasterly wind, but if that low pressure nudges in like it's trying to by the end of this run, then it could thwart any drier weather. It would still be pretty warm, still pretty humid with the wind coming up from the south, but it would mean there would be showers and storms. And you can see by this stage, we haven't got much cape at all, which is a positive sign for rainfall, a positive sign for keeping rainfall away, but there could be cape introduced towards the weekend and beyond. Now, if you look at the GFS, you'll be able to see that we are seeing a bit more of a mixed picture in the longer term now. Still seeing very warm air masses, but perhaps more mixed in terms of the pressure, more low pressure perhaps influencing us. You see the high pressure building in later parts of this upcoming working week. Southerly winds, and this is where we got to on the UKV by Friday. Strong southerly wind, warm air built in, but quite a strong low out in the Atlantic. Now, some of the runs in the past couple of days held that low pressure out in the Atlantic and just wafted up more and more hot air from the south. And those are the runs that start to show 20 degrees. But the most likely scenario now is the low pressure to move in slightly more until that wind more to the west. And what this will do is it will move in more instability, more of that low pressure influence and also slightly cooler air. Still warm, still above average, but not quite the intense heat that will likely sit over Central Europe, parts of France instead. Beyond that, we still see warm air, but by Monday, actually, low pressure could move through, and that could introduce showers and storms. And into the longer term, we're seeing a bit of a conflicting battle between high pressure to our south trying to build in, and the low pressure starting to get a lot stronger. By the end of this run, look at the Atlantic, look at all these greens, implying cool and very low pressure starting to develop. Signs of autumn, unfortunately. Again, this happens every year. We see more greens appearing. That is cooler heights of the 500 HPA level. And it simply means that autumn is coming. You look at those upper air temperatures. Look, the -10 isotherms starting to form back over Greenland. If we do compare from 0 hours here on the 13th to 384 hours, you can see a huge swathe of much colder air. So unfortunately, it is just simply this time of year, but it could thwart any attempts at seeing something drier towards the end of August if the jet stream does start to power up a little bit earlier than it normally does. Now, if you do look at the upper air temperature, you can see by Thursday, Friday, warm southerly winds, plus 10 to 15 degrees at 850 HPA, which doesn't sound exceptional, but it is a good 5 degrees above average for the time of year. Remember, the average for the upper air temperatures is now decreasing. We peaked at around 10 or 11 degrees in July. It's now down to about 7 or 8 degrees. So 10 to 15 degrees is well above average, and we give temperatures in the mid-20s like we saw in the UKV. As you can see, slightly cooler air does shift in by Tuesday. Very hot air is just flirting with the southeast, but doesn't quite move in, unfortunately, because that low is a little bit stronger. Things can still change, but this is the most likely scenario at this stage. Beyond that, we generally do stay in pretty humid air up from the south, but right in the extended range, we actually start to see a lot of cool, cold air filling the Atlantic, and that could just power the jet stream and power low pressure systems. It is in the longer term. We'll have to keep a very close eye on it, but at this stage, not the best signs for the longer term. But the next 10 days or so does look pretty decent on terms of temperatures. We just have to keep an eye on those precipitation amounts. If you look at the GM, again, low pressure moving through at the moment. High pressure builds in towards the end of this upcoming working week, and we've got strong southerly winds. Eventually, though, low pressure does move in for the weekend, influencing western areas initially, but could throw some instability further eastwards as well. And right towards day 10, we do stay in a fairly warm southwesterly flow. Brief cooler sectors could mix in, but it's fairly warm here. You can see towards next weekend, warm. But unfortunately, lower pressure mixing a little bit more, and you can see that from the precipitation. Heavy batches of rain and thunderstorms, especially in the west, but could shift eastwards at times initially when that low pressure system moves in. GEM here moving through on Saturday afternoon. Of course, other runs will have it at different timings as well. So that's going to be unfortunate as we head towards the weekend. Still going to be very warm. Could be sort of mid to high 20s in many areas, but it's more likely to be rainfall around with these latest updates. If you look at the ECMWF, again, high pressure building in over the coming days, southerly winds, and eventually that low tries to move in, but by next weekend, look at the centre of the low, is much further westwards than the GM was showing, and this means that we still have instability around because we are still just about touching the edges of the low. But if you look at the precipitation, much more likely to be showers. You can see the more scattered nature of this rainfall. So yeah, it doesn't look great here, but this is because it's lower resolution. Most of these are just heavy thundery showers instead of a wall of rain like the GEM was showing. So again, not the best. And you can see across northern France here by next Monday, you can see big thunderstorms taking off, French imports. So we're going to have to really tackle that as we head into next week. Into the longer term. Still very warm generally. You can look at the up here temperatures. Still around that 10 to 15 degree point most of the end of this week into the weekend. Maybe cooling down slightly in the north and west by next week. But still at day 10 we've got very warm, hot air to our southeast. You can see that on the temperature deviation. And that is going to fuel showers and storms as we do progress. You can see that, as I said, if we go back to the United Kingdom view here, look at all those very heavy thunderstorms in the southeast. That would be torrential but it's a typical French import that you'd expect with one of these hot plumes from the south, where we do see low pressure mix in. Now, this is all very well shown on the ensembles. These are the latest GFS ensembles. You can see average over the next couple of days, well above average by the end of the working week for about 5 days or so, peaking around the 15-degree point at 850 HPA, allowing temperatures where it's dry to rise up into the mid to high 20s. Unfortunately, as we head into the last sort of week or so of August, the upper temperatures do start to drop a bit more towards average. Again, not looking anything significantly below average at this stage, but more towards average, and precipitation is quite a bit higher than we thought a couple of days ago. So unfortunately, the ensembles haven't deteriorated massively, but they have deteriorated a little bit, meaning it's not going to be quite as hot as we thought, and it's going to be slightly more unsettled than we thought. Humidity temperatures still going to be warm. Look at that, widely mid-20s by the end of this week for the foreseeable future. Maybe by the 23rd, around 10 days' time, things cooling off a bit. But for the 5 days prior to that, very warm, just unfortunately precipitation mixing in by next weekend. By next Saturday, Sunday, could be quite thundery in places. The dew points are still looking very humid, and that's just going to fuel the rainfall, unfortunately, and fuel the thunderstorms. And finally, the ECMWF ensemble members are very similar. More towards above average in the longer term, but still around that mid-teens point by the end of this working week. So very warm, but very high amounts of precipitation, especially towards next weekend. So it could be a real battle between seeing temperatures in the high 20s, and there's some big thunderstorms moving in as well. So yes, its positives are that we're going to see much warmer conditions. It's going to be quite a bit drier for Wednesday through to Friday, maybe lingering in the east on Saturday. But unfortunately, through much of the weekend into the start of next working week, we're going to see the risk of heavy rain and some big thunderstorms increasing quite substantially. So yeah, not looking positive for sustained dry weather. There's going to be dry weather, especially at the end of this working week, but just not as sustained as we'd hoped over the past couple of days. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. If you're looking forward to some thunderstorms, of course, this update is pretty positive, and we'll have to keep a very close eye on that risk. And of course, from probably around Wednesday, Thursday time, we'll be able to have a more detailed look at it as it does get within these shorter time frames. The models could change, they could flip around, but at this stage, this is the most likely scenario. So as I said, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.